Good morning to you all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for being here. Frankie Palaguaci, I see in the chat, Lone Silencer, Fox, Samantha Guccione. It's always the usual crowd. Thank you all for being here. If you can, please like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube on the Sal Greco Show channel, like and Rumble, and also subscribe on the Rumble channel, the Sal Greco Show. And if you're watching us on X right now, streaming live on @the_Sal Greco, please hit that like button and share this out, especially those in your low information bubble. Now, today we have a special guest. He's special in that not only is he a sitting state senator, not only is he a Republican, but he's also a former. He worked in the NYPD. Here he is. He was at 9/11. So before I bring him on, I'm going to bring on the co-host, producer, wingman, my man, Jack Stern. He's on. So, Jack, I don't know if you want to give any other details about our guest before we have him on.
Yeah, Stephen had kind of a little bit of a back and forth with Mayor Mamdani in Albany, and he did an interview with CBS 6 in Albany last week. This is actually going to be the first time that he's speaking directly to constituents, and we're giving people the opportunity to chime in the live chat as well. So if you have any questions or comments and you want to interact directly with Steve, feel free to do so. It's going to be a great discussion. We're going to cover everything from New York City politics to the Republican Party to the budget in New York City. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear what Stephen has to say.
Yeah, so am I. I think this is going to be an interesting show. So let's play this infamous clip now, because I actually reposted this and it went viral all over the place. So let's watch this.
Let's get local.
Let's do it.
The garbage can mandate. A lot of people pay for their garbage cans and didn't get it. Where are they?
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
A lot of people pay for their garbage cans through the city's website, bought it, and didn't get it. Where are these garbage cans?
This is one of the issues that we're going to be following up on. I'm also just going to introduce and pass it over to my Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Jamila Edwards. Before I do, I also do
Did
have
the company
to say,
take off with the money? Is that what happened?
Before I pass it over, I do also have to say that you're also well known for having incredible TikToks, and I have to appreciate that.
Thank you very much. All right.
Good morning, Senator. We'll follow up with this on you with DSNY. It's an ongoing issue across the city, and so there are a couple of folks that we've been coordinating with on this issue. So I'll follow up with you.
Okay, that's good enough. Let's talk about the next question. Overnight in my neighborhood, Bath Beach, Gravesend, Bensonhurst, 30 cars get their airbags stolen over a span of 2 precincts. What are you going to do about that?
Can you say the
30 cars overnight in my district last night get their airbags stolen?
30 cars
windows.
last night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that is unacceptable. That is something that we will follow up on. Thank you for flagging that for us.
Okay.
Yeah, he's always going to follow up on Jack. This guy's the king of the word salad. So without any further ado, it is my honor and also Jack's honor to have sitting state senator of the 17th District of New York, Republican, and also retired NYPD, also a veteran, Stephen Chan.
Good morning, everyone.
Steve, it is an honor to have you on. Of course, I was telling you before you came on, I don't know if you give a little bit of these details, but you were in the NYPD. So I don't know if you let everyone know a little bit of that. So people understand that you know the exact same culture that I talk about on every show regarding New York City Police Department. So tell the audience a little bit about your history in the NYPD.
Okay, so I first of all, thank you for having me, Sal and Jack. It's certainly a privilege and an honor to be here. I'm very humbled to be talking to everyone here on that's viewing this show here and down the road. So I just kind of, out of conscience and duty, joined the NYPD after the United States Marines, and I didn't know any cops on the job. So getting on the job, it was just a very interesting experience. And I started off in the Lower East Side in the 7th Precinct. I ran around there in the streets in the projects for 10 years. And I did as much as I could. And that was, the early to the late 90s when Mayor Giuliani cleaned up the city. But, he wasn't without help. When I locked up somebody for, punching somebody in the head, that's assault 3. We know that, misdemeanor. But we kept that guy in jail for 3 days. And he wasn't out there assaulting other people. He wasn't out there pushing people onto the tracks. And that took the work of then Governor Pataki, as well as a Republican majority New York State Senate. And it really did take a village. And then came Comstat. You just showed a picture of Comstat. And we all know that originally that document right there, this instrument, is meant to hold precinct commanders responsible.
Correct.
Subsequently, over the years, and I'm there throughout this whole transformation, now Comstat is nothing but a tool for our politicians. And let me get this straight. I hate politicians.
Even though you are one, it's okay.
It has become what is a tool for the politicians to tell you that crime is down. And according to them, every press conference, crime is down. We should be leaving our keys to our houses under our doormats, or leaving our car windows open. So now, from the 7th precinct, I was at Ground Zero the day off, and subsequently I got promoted and I headed to Brooklyn, where I was a patrol supervisor for the next 3 years with some of the best people that I have ever met in my life. And for the last 15 years or so, I became the second in command of the Brooklyn South Evidence Collection Team, which everybody knows is like our crime scene unit here in Brooklyn. And here I met every cop that worked in South Brooklyn. At some point, everybody had to talk to me. I think you included, Sal.
And you included it.
Yeah. And that's my police career. And might I add, I know there's a lot of public sentiment. Why do you hate the police? I was a police officer for 27 years. I had one single CCRB. It's not that I was a lazy cop and I didn't do anything. I was an active cop. I made over 200 arrests. In that 200 arrests, I only received one CCRB. It was substantiated. It was a young black teen. He said I cursed at him. Okay, well, maybe I did and maybe I didn't. I can't remember. But if in 27 years, that's the only bad thing that I did, you know what? Okay, then I say that's a pretty stellar record. Well, wouldn't you say so?
I agree. Listen, it's very hard these days, especially with the way they manipulate that CCRB system, where it's used against the police officers and the supervisors and anyone on scene. You could get 200 of these things, and you'll look like an evil cop. You don't have any lawsuits. That also matters. I was sued one time for ridiculous gun arrest I had, but the CCRB is weaponized against people. The fact you only have one shows how outstanding you are with the community, because Steve, I've never heard a bad word about you, not only in the NYPD, but on the campaign trail. As you know, everybody supported you. It didn't matter what side of the aisle they fell on, which shows exactly what you were saying when you were questioning the astounding New York City mayor these days, Mamdani, when you told him, I walk the streets, everyone knows me in the neighborhood, which they do. And that's the important part, because you know the people, know the district. You actually know all 5 boroughs because you walked it as a police officer. You also know you've been overseas. You've done it all. So to try to cut corners, what they try, these politicians, they can't. Because what I liked is you came right out of the gate. You were pretty direct. And there is this budget problem. New York has a problem. You got to curb New York City, which is out of control, including what the mayor wants. Public safety is an issue. I mean, you asked him a question about airbags. He didn't even know what's going on.
And all he said was that it's unacceptable. Well, since when was it acceptable?
Yeah.
You're not. I want Mr. Mamdani to know that you're not going to do anything about that if you keep, defunding the police and not hiring new police officers when we have 2 sector cars patrolling the precinct. I know what that's like.
Yep. See, and that's why. Go ahead, Jack. You go.
Yeah. So, Steve, after you left the NYPD back in 2020, what made you want to get involved in politics, and why did you want to get involved with the Republican Party specifically? The reason why I ask that is Republicans are the minority, especially up in Albany, and it's interesting that you really wanted to align with the values of the Republican Party in particular.
Well, yes, absolutely. So it's quite a long story. So I was retired, and this wasn't my idea to run for Senate. I volunteered for 10 years in our public school system for the sake of my daughter, and subsequently for the sake of all the children of our district and New York City. And I became the PTA president after I retired. I became the PTA president of a very famous middle school, and that's IS 187. Krista McCullough. Shout out to Krista McCullough over here on 65th and 12th Avenue. That is the
IS 98 graduate. I'm not sure you knew that, Stephen.
Right, and 187 was the benchmark of all the parents in the district and outside the district. That's the school to get your kids into. So here I am dealing with 1,000 tiger moms and dads. And somewhere along the way, I was introduced to the Kings County GOP, and then Chairman Richie Barsamian approached me and said, "You know what, Steve, you're going to be the next senator." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm retired." And we talked for several months. And you know what subsequently made me so infuriated and angry was when Mayor Adams shut down James Madison High School for the sake of putting the migrants in there. I said to myself, children need to go to school. Some of those children need to eat at school, although the food sucks. Some of those children, their parents have to go to work. How are you going to shut that down and put the migrants in there when they already had shelter in Floyd Bennett Field? So I got so mad that I went down there, I protested, I screamed, I yelled, and I ran into Richie Barsamian. I said, okay, now I'm running for Senate. And that's when I joined the race. And now two and change years later, I'm the senator. And that's how it happened. Now, why am I a Republican? 20 years ago, I was a Democrat. When it was a more sensible, different Democratic Party where some people actually had common sense and they spoke correctly about a lot of issues. Not long ago, I remember even Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Bill Clinton talking about illegals and how they're going to deport them. You got to enter the country legally, right? So, look, listen, we have a lot of immigrants in South Brooklyn, legal or otherwise. I get it. We all know undocumented immigrants. I get it, right? And a lot of them are building a great life for themselves. They're working hard. They've been here for decades. They stay out of trouble. I get it. But there's also a large amount of criminal elements that we should be deporting like immediately. So while I don't take a hard stance on immigration like Kristi Noem, I do take a stance on it because there's people like my wife who has 3 siblings waiting faithfully for 16 years for an immigration visa from Malaysia. Is it fair to my wife's siblings? And these are hardworking people that's waiting to get here legally. I could tell them, you know what, forget that. Just go to Canada and walk across the border. I could tell them that, but I don't tell them that because my wife's family is a law-abiding family, and that's what we like over here. Now, why am I a Republican? Because I am, ready? Definitely not a Democrat.
We've heard that answer before.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be, if you're a Democrat, I mean, look at the leadership you've had in the city. First one, the de Blasio, then Eric Adams, and now on the Zohran Mamdani, who's all over the place. I mean, I don't know if you remember, he was in the state assembly where for 4 years, did you ever see this guy in the halls? I mean, he barely voted on any bills.
I was introduced to him once, and we had maybe a 3 or 4 minute conversation, and I thought he was, I'm going to stop right here.
I mean, this is kind of the feedback and critique we've gotten from a lot of people up in Albany, whether it be state senators, state assemblymen, people who worked in the legislative body. We've heard that he was very poor legislatively speaking. Like, he might be good at making TikTok videos and going out on the street and dancing with people and being a national figurehead for the Democratic Party. But when you really strip down the layers of the onion, he's not a very good legislator. And unfortunately, when you lack legislative skills and you're not competent in basic governance either, the citizens in your city are going to suffer. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
Right. I don't recall ever seeing him standing up and, explaining a vote or debating a bill, which is something that I often do. And it's very disappointing after a year and a half. And this is the reason why I say I hate politicians, because I speak on behalf of what I know, the Senate, where my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they just unilaterally vote yes to everything. We passed hundreds of useless legislation in the last 1 year. Yeah, okay, so you can say as a Democrat, I passed 20 laws, but not one of those laws benefits any of us. So here's a case where I'm always speaking out against a lot of these things. And my philosophy is no legislation is better than bad legislation. Now, with that said, I did speak out on the medically assisted suicide bill, not so much from the moral aspects of it, but first of all, let's get this straight. Now, last year I said, in the state of New York, we can't take one of these pentobarbital home to put our dogs down. You're going to let us do that with our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our parents? And how does that even make sense? And I brought my own narcotics officer experience when I did street narcotics. I brought that experience to the floor where I told him, look, when Viagra came out, it was maybe 5 or 6 days before I can go into the park with $10 and buy one. And how long do you think it's going to be before one of these pentobarbital are available in the park? With that said, you know, as cops, you responded to deaths at home, right? I won't use police jargon because not everybody knows it. So, you know, when you go there and you have an 85-year-old person that's deceased and you get a hold of the doctor and the doctor realizing, oh, they were sick anyway. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll sign the death certificate. You know, it ends right there. There's no ME, there's nothing, no investigation. The body goes to the funeral home and that's the end. So what if a greedy grandson or granddaughter gets one of these pentobarbital and they feed it to their grandma, who was sick anyway, 90 years old, right? So that it kind of helps her along the way. And the doctor signs a death certificate and there's no investigation, no autopsy, nothing. That's the perfect crime. I spoke about that from the law enforcement aspects of it. And they're like, oh, it hasn't happened yet. And I said, that's because it's a perfect crime. You're not going to know if it happened. So this is the kind of logic that I'm dealing with on the other side of the aisle.
You're trying to bring sense and common sense, which, as you know, in the New York City Police Department, in the leadership roles, that doesn't have common sense doesn't go through leadership and also doesn't go through political leaders as well. If it makes sense, why bother? You know, why doing that? Oh, we got to do it this way, and it makes no sense. I've said that forever until this day with some of this stuff. But I actually have. There's a few people in the crowd right now. I got Baby Lou said, Senator Chan should have never accepted the mayor's word salad.
You know, if you notice, I did take charge of that conversation where, you know, I cut him off and I moved on to the next question. I had so many more questions for him, you know, about education, about the schools. You know, why is he trying to get rid of the honors program and the gifted and talented program? Does he not like excellence?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest, Steve. He's all over the place. I got other friends in city council. You know, he came in yesterday talking about the budget. I know Jack's going to ask you about that. So he came in to city council. Everything that he said on his press conference, he came to city council first, which is that, you know, no one's used to that in the last couple of years because Eric Adams never did that. So he does things to try to do things in the right way. He has a couple of good ideas, and then he's got these insane things, and he answers questions like you said. It's all these word salads, or I'll get back to you, and you're like, he's just a bit of an enigma. And I guess he was the same way in the state assembly because nobody ever saw him. So it's a little bit of he's learning on the job, I think, and you know how that is. It's like a rookie cop.
And it's hard because look, our mayor, let's face it, right? He doesn't have kids. Definitely not kids in public school. He's never been a small business owner or a homeowner. He's never been a union guy, a working guy. He's never done any of this. He was never a doctor, a nurse, a police officer, a veteran. How can he possibly advocate for any of the above from experience? He can only.
He got free housing and rent reduced costs pretty much his entire life because his dad was a faculty member at Columbia University, where they got free housing in Upper Manhattan, which is very expensive. And then he was paying about $2,400 a month for a rent-stabilized apartment in Astoria, despite owning a $300,000 property in Uganda. How does that make any sense?
Right, it doesn't make sense. And you know, I wanted to ask him also, you know, what kind of winter plan did you have in place in light of, you know, the snow? Now, he loaded himself that he can only listen to the guidance of his advisors and the people that he hires, such as for the OEM, the DOE, and so forth, right? But he's loading these places not with experienced people. He's loading these places with activists. And I got to say, you know, I like Commissioner Tisch, by the way. You know, maybe she should run for mayor, right? You know, Commissioner, maybe not so harsh on the cops. Right?
Well, there are some issues with her, I'd say, internally. There's a lot going on in the police department. I don't know if you know, I could tell you about some things. I mean, you always know, you were there. But she is viewed, I've given it a nickname, the soccer mom, because she's clueless on a lot of what's going on. And I think one of the issues that you actually showed the public when you asked him about the airbags that have been stolen, right there in 6'2" and in 6'8", he says you informed him when he should be getting debriefed by Tish in the morning. So clearly there's a disconnect, which means, look, maybe you then need to remove her and put who you want to put, like a bossy, someone that you want, then keep her around to try to appease whoever's donated to this campaign, because clearly there's a disconnect there, and he didn't have a right answer for you, and that's bad for the people. Because, all right, you ask him a question, and he's like, I don't, thank you for telling me this. But you should know this. This just happened last night. It's a big crime. 30 airbags. That's you got.
It's actually closer to 50 now. At that time when I questioned him, it was on or about 30. So obviously we have a gang out there doing this, right? And then, in my police department in the 90s, we would have caught him right away. It would have been easy. It doesn't take a genius. But we don't have that kind of operational standards now. We don't have that kind of resources. So that's why crime is like this. And they keep telling us crime is down, right? So I had a constituent that very same evening tell me that she got punched in the head at Union Square. And I said, look, I'm going to reach out to my operations coordinator, and we're going to call the precinct, and you're going to report it. She said, no, I don't want to report it. And so it doesn't go reported. Now, it doesn't go reported, and when things do get reported, look, how many times have I seen this happen, right? So when somebody steals a shampoo, that's petty larceny, no problem. But when they try to leave and the security guard stops him and he starts fighting the security guard, it becomes now a robbery. We know that.
Yep.
However, when you look at the complaint report, it is now one report for petty larceny and one report for assault in the third degree, 2 misdemeanors instead of 1 felony. So, and that's how things get mixed up. That's how they're able to tell you that crime is down.
In an interview with CBS 6 in Albany last week, you even went as far as saying that Mamdani answered none of your questions. And that's a direct quote, by the way, in that hearing up in Albany in the Senate. But let's talk a little bit about some of his policy proposals and ideas, and then we'll move on to the budget. One of the pillars of his campaign was providing free bus service to New Yorkers. He's quickly pivoted off that stance, saying he wanted to provide Metro cards or subsidies to low-income communities in some form or fashion. But you've actually been pretty proactive up in Albany, and right now you have a bill in committee, S9186, which would expand free service for military veterans and active members of law enforcement and EMS services as well. It would kind of expand a service to them from LIRR. You'd be able to get free service on the Metro North, the MTA, all of the above. But the caveat here, Stephen, is if this bill passes, there's no way that low-income communities are also going to get subsidies when it comes to transportation. So what are your thoughts on this legislation, Mamdani's proposal, and the direction that you've decided to go in?
Okay, so this is a great question, and it's also interrelated to the budget itself. So, not too many people remember a guy by the name of Colin Ferguson on the Long Island Railroad back in, I want to say 1994, where he entered the Long Island Railroad train with a .40 caliber handgun, and he shot and killed several people, only for a Good Samaritan to tackle him. He had a bag of ammunition. Do you guys remember that, Colin Ferguson?
I remember the name, yes. It was in the 90s.
Yeah. So, in light of the events that's in the subways now, people getting pushed on. The day after I spoke to the mayor, another person was pushed onto the subway tracks in my district.
Unbelievable.
Thank heavens he wasn't hurt. And just a few days ago, another 3 females were attacked at 53rd Street and 4th Avenue. Assaultery, they got punched. Right. So, and you can't tell me these things don't happen every single day. It's not an exaggeration. I am not exaggerating. So with that, why wouldn't we want more police officers and veterans? Look at Daniel Penny. right? He did the right thing, and look what they did to him. So
Sure.
that's another issue. We got to talk. We got to talk about the Attorney General, and then there's a great person running for him. You guys got to have her on your show. Her name is Sarita Kumari Reddy, and she was a former U.S. prosecutor, just like Rudy Giuliani was. And I'm going to introduce you. But anyway, so back to the budget, right? Our mayor right now is literally, and I've been refraining from comment on my social media because I'm still waiting for more facts to come in, and so I can dissect it and digest it and talk about it. So literally right now what I have is a mayor basically holding the middle class hostage as a negotiating chip. He's trying to force our governor to either raise taxes or give him $1.5 billion. Okay, the question is, okay, that's great, $1.5 billion for New York City and my community. But what's he going to do with $1.5 billion? Is he going to subsidize, train fares for the elderly and the disabled? Is he going to put it to good use? And that's where the transparency is going to be lost. New York City was asking for $127 billion in the House One budget. It looks like that number is going to go up a little bit more. And here's another thing that they don't tell you. You know, when Governor Hochul says, oh, you know what, Wall Street had a great year. We don't have to raise your taxes because we got an extra $5.9 billion from Wall Street. True. Wall Street had a robust, profitable year, and they paid an extra $5.9 billion into the state's coffers. But she stops right there. She doesn't tell you why Wall Street had a robust year and a fantastic season, right? It's because of the SEC, it's because of the FTC and the policies of the Federal Reserve. It is the policies, the economic policies of our federal government, which, look, I'm not a diehard Trumper by any means, right? I do support our president, right? Because he is our president.
You're giving credit where credit is due, and that's not something
Yes.
New Yorkers are doing enough. I saw Comptroller Mark Levine was on New York One last night, and when Errol Lewis asked him about the strength of the stock market being traced back to President Trump, he said, no, it's in light of President Trump, not President. Come on now.
It absolutely is because of our federal economic policies. And you know, there's one person responsible for that. Let's get that straight. And that's the part that they don't tell the public. So back to the budget, right? Mamdani's holding us hostage. If you don't give me this, he's like a rich kid, a rich, spoiled kid holding his breath like this. Like, you give me this or else, right? So look, $1 million. He says, oh, the millionaires tax. We're going to raise taxes on everybody, right? And that's why we have a mass exodus of taxpayers,
Right.
to the tune of 920 a day in New York State. That's how many people, taxpayers, are leaving New York. With that said, so he's going to hold me hostage, the homeowner here who bought their houses 30 years ago, and they live a modest means. Yes, their house is worth a lot of money. He wants to raise their property taxes 2% from, let's say, $10,000. Oh, I'm sorry, 10% from $10,000, let's say. That's $1,000. Then he's going to go reassess their houses. Oh, your house is worth more now. It's worth $2 million. So we're going to double your property tax, and we're going to double that increase. So he's holding all the homeowners and taxpayers hostage to get Hochul, give him money or else. Or you raise the taxes on people. Now it's an election year. She's not keen to the idea of raising taxes. But I tell you who is, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the Senate. They're open to it.
Of course.
And so I just don't get the end game. As soon as I figure out the end game, what do they hope that this is going to lead to? Where's the extra money going to come from down the road? If they don't raise the taxes this year, I gotta let my constituents know. I believe if you keep voting far left, the tax is going to come next year as soon as she gets reelected. If she gets reelected, which she's not going to get reelected, so.
She shouldn't. I mean, I have issues with. I don't think you didn't mention Trump. Trump is a factor in that. You know, Mamdani went there and they're having a love fest, and they could show that commercial over and over again. On top of, you know, who was supposed to be running and no longer running. I got Bruce Blakeman running. So and then the Republicans are always, you know, playing games with each other behind the scenes in the state. That's one of the issues with. I mean, he almost had it with Lee Zeldin, but he fell about what 5 points short.
Yes,
So
just 5.5 short.
I think there was other things involved in that, and we don't want to get into that. But he didn't challenge anything. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So she is vulnerable, but yet the party itself, I don't know. I mean, you got guys like John Catsimatidis who loves Hochul, but he'll say, "Oh, I'm a Republican," but he's playing footsie with both sides. But meanwhile, he's a very prominent Republican that could help fund the campaign. But who is he funding? I don't know, because he's on both sides, So that's the problem with New York State and the city in general, with how who's running and who's getting behind who. I mean, this guy, look, he's always with Kathy Hochul. He loves Kathy Hochul.
Right. And he even called for Curtis to step down. Now, I like Katz, but I just don't get that sense of logic. For me, like I said, I don't like politicians. I don't like being called one. And I remained steadfast. I stood by Curtis. I knew where it was heading, but I never left him. And when you lack loyalty, forget about being a politician. Very few politicians are going to be loyal to anybody. But as a person, that value itself matters to me. It matters to my conscience.
It
wasn't the fact that people were going and voting for Cuomo and Mamdani that upset a lot of Republicans in New York City. It was the fact that people were manipulating public perception and deceiving the public about what was actually going on. In reality, Senator Chan, when the election was over, we came to realize that Andrew Cuomo didn't have a chance of beating Mamdani, and this idea that a vote for Sliwa was a vote for Mamdani was total nonsense. And they were just staging all of these performative theatrics to keep us entertained and tuned into the election, when in reality, the winner had already been decided.
Yeah, I believe it's all orchestrated by the Democrat Party machine. Now we have a convoluted view of how voters really wanted to vote in New York City. So going into this year's elections, we really don't know, of those people that voted for Cuomo, how many people is going to vote for common sense.
That's the key, and also to hold people accountable. Because one of the things, I heard this, what you were talking about with the budget. So I don't know if Jack wanted to ask you something. I thought of this question too before this. He said about the property tax, right? He's going to start taxing people, but he ran on, I'm for the middle class, I'm for the working class, I'm for the, the people that are in need. But if you're going to start taxing these people and on their homes, they're going to have to raise the rent, which means what? These people, then you just promised these people the world, and now you just made it twice as hard for them.
Yeah, right. As a small homeowner myself, I used to have a little bit more. I do have one rental property. It's it's on my public disclosure. I know the hardships of being a small landlord, as well as medium and large landlords. Right? We are really truly operating on razor-thin profit margins. I remember when I bought my building, this last one that I own, it's only a 2-family mixed use. I inherited one of the tenants, and I love Lola. Subsequently, we became very good friends. Now, 25 years later, I haven't raised her rent for 19 years now. And she came out and told me, when my last opponent called me a slumlord, my tenants came out to speak on my behalf, past and present. And the reason that I couldn't raise her rent is this. She's paying just about, I'm going to review the numbers. She's paying just about $1,000 for a 3-bedroom.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you why. In Bay Ridge, by the way. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I know she's older. She's in her 70s. She's living on Social Security. I could raise her rent to $3,000. It's not going to do me any good. I won't be able to collect it, and she's not going to have a home. I'm not going to do that to her. So there's landlords like me that took it upon myself to absorb the cost of, taking care of one single person. And there's a lot of landlords like that. I know a lot that they don't have the heart to raise the rent on their tenants. They know it's hard, and it forces us to operate our buildings on a smaller margin. In fact, I say if I sold the building and just parked the money in mutual funds, I'd be doing much better, and that's a true statement.
Yeah, and your situation in a nutshell is representative of the dilemma that a lot of people all across the city are going to be facing, because if the cost of operating your building goes up, then you have to pass it on to the tenants. Then you have additional labor to do that, costs money as well. So this is going to be a very large issue. And remember, Mamdani's key campaign promise, in addition to the city-owned grocery stores and the free bus service, was that he was also going to be freezing the rent. Now it looks like there's going to be a rent increase a month and a half into his mayoral tenure. But anyway, before we react any further to this, let's hear what Mamdani had to say recently when he was going into details about his budget proposal.
Would rather do is ensure that they remain as they are so that the city can be on firm financial footing. However, in order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefits trust reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other years.
Basically, what Mamdani is saying is that if he doesn't get what he wants from Kathy Hochul, he's going to increase property taxes. He's going to cut expenses and essential services because that's what the rainy day fund covers or what it's for. And everyone's going to suffer. So he's pretty much creating this dilemma where it's him against Hochul, but Hochul is now going against the people of New York City too, because she's not willing to give New York City any more money. Meanwhile, she gave New York City $1.5 billion in financial relief recently. Yes, I know it's only going to cover a couple months worth of expenses, but still it's a lot better than nothing. And Mamdani is not exactly being resourceful here either.
Right. That's what I meant when I said earlier that he's holding all of us hostage over here. He loaded all his departments with these activists that has no experience in showing him what he should be doing and looking to save in certain areas, and to hold homeowners and middle class people. Look, first of all, if you make $1 million, right? If you're a millionaire, right? You're just a homeowner. It's not a lot of money. Everybody knows that. To make $200,000 nowadays for a family of 4 or 5 is you're just middle class, man. You're not rich. And they tax the heck out of you. And but look, if somebody made $50 million a year, and you say, "Oh, you're rich. We're taking $25 million," did you really affect his quality of life that much? The answer is no. But if you tell somebody making $300,000, "Oh, you're rich. We're going to take $150,000," you just made that guy poor.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's happening. There's a lot of homeowners here that I know they can't renovate their homes. They can't keep up with the maintenance. Electric bill is $1,000, right? So I had this great idea, and I said, look, we have $2 billion in the slush fund. Let's give everybody a tax holiday on electric and gas bills for 1 year. That'll save them 30%. So if you're a homeowner and you're paying, let's say, $8,000-9,000 in utility costs, that just saved you $2,000 to $3,000 for the year. Just 1 year, not long. And of course, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle says, no, we want to keep the money. And I don't know what they're going to do with it. It's a slush fund in NYSEG. So now we're paying for two. Why are we? Look, everybody blames Con Edison. Everybody blames National Grid, but it's not them. It's not them. They're making the same amount of money as they did years before. It is the PSC, the Public Service Commission, the people appointed by the governor to authorize these rate hikes. Now, where did these rate hikes go to? We pay a surcharge, we pay taxes. It's actually funding 2 separate infrastructures in New York State, the fossil fuel infrastructure and the green infrastructure, which is not realistic right now. But they keep pouring money into it. And that whole CLCPA mandate, where we're going to have no gas by the year 2030, every school bus in New York, we're going to save the planet by making them electric. I can see it now, just like my little kids saw when they did a science project on the Indian Point nuclear power plant, and I talked about that. So I can see it now, school buses broken down on the side of the road in the winter, kids not being picked up, stranded out of state, and that's what's going to happen. So do we actually need a 100% mandate on electric school buses? The answer is no. Why can't we go half? Why can't we go even more, 60%, right? So how are you going to charge every single school bus in New York City when we have 97 volts of electricity running through our power grid?
You're going to, here's another thing that the other day that he mentioned at that same press conference was the pension fund. So all of a sudden, he said he's going to take money out and, we're going to put it back. But Steve, you've been through this before when you hear this. When have they ever taken money out and put anything back in a fund ever, especially in a pension?
Well, you know what? So I was only 8 years old at the time or so forth, right? In 1974, something similar happened. And that's what gave the cops their variable supplement and their 8.25% interest on their increased take-home pay and the 50-50 extra money that they put in to their pension. Now, last year, they struck a deal with the UFT, right? The UFT gave them money out of their pension system, and they got New York City's got to pay it back, I believe, in 8 years. But I'm telling you right now, what I can see is the same repeat as 1974. They're not going to be able to pay it back with interest, and then they're going to strike another deal where now we are on the hook to pay the teachers either a variable supplement every year or a bonus or even 5% interest on their pension. You know what? For the teachers, it's a great thing. You know, if that's going to happen to the police department again, right? It may down the road. I have to see that piece of legislation. I have not came across it yet. I have to see the wording. It might be good for the cops. But in the whole, you know, and I back the blue, of course, always the city workers, sanitation, FD, corrections. You know, these are hardworking guys, just like everybody else. They're trying to raise a family. They work as often as they can. They don't mind it, and we'll have to see. You know what the proposal looks like. Is it good or bad for the working people of New York State? Does it have a good sense of fiscal responsibility? If it does, you know, maybe I'll support it. If it doesn't, then absolutely I'll go against it. You know, people trust me to go to Albany and represent the people of my district, and I love them to death. And our district is full of hardworking guys and people like me trying to raise a family, looking out for their neighbors, and we want to keep it that way. So I have to you know, dissect that and see what it says. Yeah,
it was another crazy proposal by Mamdani, who also with public safety.
Well, if he came up with it, chances are it doesn't benefit anybody.
No, it's one of those crazy proposals because, like I said, I want to know how you're going to put this money back by 2028. So they're saying in another year and a half, you're going to put this money. I don't see how's that even going to work. Oh, you had the whole little budget screen. We're going to take from here, but we're going to add over here. Right. And so the next year it's going to be back here. When is that ever we've actually seen that occur in government?
Right. What I do want to see is the stipulation where it says, like, what if you don't pay it back by 2028? Now what? Now what do we get out of it? That's what's going to happen to the teachers. It's a time bomb. It's a looming time bomb. It's going to blow up on his face. He may not be the mayor at that point. In fact, he's not. So he's just passing the buck. And quite frankly, right? So you know the police officers of Tier 2, they get a $12,000 variable supplement, right? It was great if you retired in 1996. Now in 2026, that $12,000 can't even after tax can't even pay your property tax. That's why. That we're losing more retirees, we're losing more taxpayers. They're finding life much easier and higher quality outside the state. And talk about Florida, where a lot of these cops are going, right? I believe their state budget is in the vicinity for 29 million people. Their budget is in the vicinity of around $190 billion, about 70 billion less than ours. How is that possible? How did Florida do so good with much less of a budget for a higher population? What did we do wrong? New York State has the highest per capita spending in their budget.
So to put those numbers in perspective definitively, Steve, Florida's budget for the last fiscal year is $117 billion for 22 million residents. Now, by comparison, New York City has a $127 billion budget for 8.8 million people. Now, we all know the population density in New York is a lot smaller, especially in New York City within the 5 boroughs. But still, that's a pretty large difference given the income and also the population disparity.
Yeah, and you know that's an understatement as well. 8.8 million. You know, I believe those numbers are far less than what it actually is. I know this. You know, I walk the streets in my district, and I can tell you right now, you know, according to census, I represent about 375,000 people. If I'm correct, you know, that number's got to be much closer to 500,000-600,000 people, because that's how many people are here. And of course, a lot of people. We know that from electric use and gas use. And when I look at private houses and buildings, the amount of air conditioners sticking out of every window, that tells me that every room is SRO, illegally converted or otherwise. There's a lot of migrants. We have an influx. Again, of course, I'm not anti-immigrant, but what we do have a problem here. Our schools are crowded. Our classroom mandate. That's another thing, right? The classroom mandate. Less pupils per class, and our school's budget is roughly about 40% of our entire city's budget. Somewhere along the way, we can increase the classroom size by 1 or 2. I know the UFT is very powerful, but it doesn't have to be across the board. I'll tell you this right now, in my neighborhood right here in Sunset Park, Bensonhurst, the kids are good. They got this. You can put 25 kids in the class. They'll learn. They're there in school to learn something. They're not there to be rabble-rousers.
Like a certain former New York City mayor was in his police career. But I have 2 questions here from the crowd here. So Samantha Guccione asks, what's going on with the Tier 3 Social Security offset, Senator?
Okay, you guys know I love you. You guys are still running around out there, comparing to the job that you're doing now. Mine was literally easy. It was a cakewalk. 27 years flew by like that. And I feel very bad that the union, kind of, if I had to use the term sold out, right? We lost the Social Security. Now there's an offset. It's not fair. It's not fair. And, when I'm up there, I talk to the sensible Democrats and Republicans alike, and we are working on passing legislation to get you guys that, to repeal that Social Security offset. It should not offset your pension. It should not. That's my belief. Okay. And as long as I'm there, and I promise you that, I will work on it. There's other legislators up there, like Assemblyman Mike Riley, who's also a retired cop. There's people like Assemblyman Lester Chang, who is very supportive of the police. He was 24 years in the Navy. There's Senator Rob Willison, who is also a retired Westchester County police officer and a New York State trooper. There's Senator Pat Gallivan. All these people are there for you guys. And I want to mention Jessica Stanton as well, although she's a Democrat, but she's very supportive of the boys in blue, the boys and girls in blue. So we got your back, and nothing's going to happen fast. I'm sorry, but eventually we'll work on that.
You just mentioned Mrs. Stanton there. She asked the question. She actually told the mayor about Tier 6, and I believe he had a bill, and somehow, it's all bureaucratic and didn't pass last time, but she mentioned to him, you yourself are in Tier 6. So I don't know if you're gonna have to bring in legislation again. And he just sat there and go, oh, we'll look at it, but he's in it. He's in Tier 6 himself. So I don't know what he's gonna do with that. But she did bring that up though.
Right. And I don't like the fact that, the city council tries to give themselves a how many % pay raise, right? They want to go from 145,000 to 170,000. Geez, it's great. What kind of job can you give yourself that kind of a pay raise, like a 20% pay raise? This I promise you guys too, all the viewers out there right now. If there is legislation to give us, the New York State legislators, a pay raise, my vote is no. And I can say with a clear conscience that as a state senator, I have not bought a new house. I have not bought a new car. I don't drive a Benz. I drive a modest little Honda, or a big Honda, right? I wear $100 watch, right? I have zero personal gain from this. And if anything, I lost money. And that's, for my conscience, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
That's why, Steve, people admire you, because you're like the working man's champion, in the sense, like you're the people's champ. People know that. You're not one of those guys. Like a lot of these guys get there, and you can look at Congress, see people's portfolios there with the stocks. It's quite interesting. There's one other question I was going to ask. Is I saw here Joe Roscoe, 23. He's always in the chat. He says, what does Senator Chan do when cops are being maliciously prosecuted? And there's quite a few cases.
Right. So, okay. Yeah, absolutely. So the other day, I just happened to be in Chinatown for the Chinese New Year celebration. Of course, I stopped at my union, the Sergeants Benevolent Association. I spoke to Eddie and Billy over there. And what I said to them was, It's horrifying that Sergeant Duran in the Bronx was convicted of manslaughter. It's ridiculous. Whatever they need me to do, go to court, whatever it is, write letters, speak to people, I'm there. I got their backs. This is ridiculous. There's something that I would have done as a narcotics officer. And we have right now an attorney general. All she wants to do is prosecute cops and our president. That's her sole mission in life. That's why I mentioned that we have a great candidate running for attorney general, and we should be paying attention to elections like that. So last time Michael Henry ran for HG, and he didn't do that bad. He was in the 40s, in the percentile. I believe was somewhere around 44%. So our new AG is recently a United States prosecutor in Manhattan. She prosecuted terrorists. She came from a hardworking immigrant family. She's Indian. I want you to have her on your show. I'm not going to talk a lot about her. I'll let her do that on her own. But that's the person. That's the kind of conviction that we need. Somebody who is fair, somebody who sees what is right and what is wrong, somebody who's truly going to represent the people of the state of New York. And you know what? She backs the blue. That's the most important thing. Instead of looking to prosecute every cop. So now we have a city councilwoman who says, we want to make it a crime for a cop to pull out his gun. I got news for you. I got news for you, councilwoman. When I was a cop in the 7th precinct and I worked midnight to 8 and I'm doing verticals in those project buildings, practically every day my gun came out of my holster and I didn't shoot anybody.
That's a bunch of pontificating at the end of the day, though, because if crime rates go up in all of these neighborhoods, then city council members are going to quickly adjust their stances. Senator, I heard your comment about the salary increase as well, the 16% increase that took place in the city council. I don't think people were upset about the salary raise happening in general, because we all know it's very expensive to live in New York City. People were mad that Mayor Mamdani approved that pay raise immediately after getting into office. And
he approved it? I didn't even know.
Yeah, he's voting for it, and he wants to approve it. It's on his desk right now. And if it is approved, it's going to cost taxpayers, I just did the calculation, over $1 million, more like $1.5 million, which, distributed amongst all of the residents in New York City isn't a lot of money, but it's the moral premise. Like, we're all struggling, we're all having a tough time, and now our taxes are going to be going up to pay the people who are supposed to be representing us.
Oh boy! So I can see it now. I can see an amendment to the budget where they're going to try to give ourselves a pay raise. Right? We make $142,000 a year currently. It's not about the money. So they're going to try to raise that. They're going to say, "Oh, you know what? A city councilman can't make more than us. We got to bring our salary up too." Well, everybody, listen to my words. I promise you, my vote is no.
That's a graft. That's what that's called. These guys are so used to it. They're so, trust me, if the mayor could raise his own salary, he would, and try to get more money, man. Maybe he wants to make $300,000 a year. At least one thing I'd say about the president, he doesn't collect a salary. Okay. You can't knock the president of the States for that. He's not collecting a salary, but these other people, if they could give themselves raises and double down on their stock portfolios, they'll do it, or crypto, whatever scam that is behind scam. Crypto's everywhere. Everyone's
the
getting
new thing is the green energy sector. They're all buying options in the green energy sector, and then they pass these laws that directly affects their portfolio. It's I'm sure it's happening.
It's a conflict. These guys just do what they want. You're like, oh, but a cop does his job. Oh, we got to prosecute him. And you didn't mention a lot about Letitia James. I was one through my own lawsuit. We found out there was this nightclub, this place called Sofrito, where they were all hanging out with this upper echelon of police department, Eric Adams and his cronies. There was human trafficking involved, and the guy running the place was a mob associate and a criminal. He's smiling with Letitia James. Through this, we started looking into her, and that's how that whole mortgage fraud thing, which, again, there's a lot with that because it was in Virginia. Here's the guy. This guy, Jimmy Rodriguez, if you remember the job, you have Jimmy's Cafe in the Bronx, and all. If you were a cop, will say, I don't know, if going to places you shouldn't be at, that was one of them. That would be a place. But the police commissioner, Eddie Caban, is the former commissioner's brother. They were all involved with that. So all of that, she's in the middle of her. Darcel Clark is another one who the other day, get Steve, how is she's prosecuting a cop, says they took $40,000 from a COVID PPP loan, right? It's one cop. Now, I showed just 2 days ago another guy who's the current New York City sheriff, Anthony Miranda, another con sofrito guy. Right. He took out a loan for $28,000 for a company. Was called Anthony Miranda and Associates, had 5 employees. It was closed the second he got the money. How is he not being looked at or investigated for that? But the cop, $40,000. I'm not saying he's innocent, but I'm saying this is selective prosecution.
Absolutely. And that's why I say we need the correct attorney general representing the people of the state of New York. And I urge everybody that, look, the Democrat Party machine, they hate me because I'm the guy that took away the Senate supermajority from the Democrats. I actually inadvertently gave the governor a little bit of more vetoing power. Right? So with that said, the machine, of course, is operating against me. They want to get rid of me. I'm the only Republican senator in the 4 boroughs. And the only other one is Andrew Lanza in Staten Island. And him and I are very good friends. And they're giving him a hard time, too. So, we have to band together. We're like the last foothold, the last thorn on their side. And we got to, we have to expand this. We have to take the Senate back to stop the nonsense. And
Letitia James has really become like an institutional powerhouse in New York State politics. She's been in this game for 22 years. Senator, you talk about people not being in this thing too long and non-traditional politicians. We need more of a non-traditional politician as Attorney General. Part of the issue with James is she was a city council member, then a public advocate, then the Attorney General. She knows the system too well, and she's been exploiting it for far too long and disadvantaging the people of New York City. It's time for her to go, time to get someone new in her spot as well.
Yeah, and that's why, I always say this, our founding fathers meant for this country to be run by citizens and not career politicians. And that's why we need more ordinary, everyday citizens who cares about their neighborhood, about the city and the state, who has a love for everyone alike. And we need more of those people to step out with common sense and run for office. And let's get some of these people out of here.
Yeah,
Mamdani was not a non-traditional politician either. I mean, there's this large misconception that he came out of nowhere and he's an everyday person. But at the end of the day, Senator, his mom is a very famous filmmaker. He had the Soros family bankrolling him financially, multiple properties. What?
But his mom was involved with Epstein in some way.
Yeah, well, that's another. I mean, we had a long discussion about this on a previous show. Mamdani talked about the photo of him where he was pictured with Epstein and how that was created by AI. Okay, that's fine. We're sorry that you have to deal with that photo of you and Epstein together that was fake. But at the end of the day, your mom was still named in email exchanges between Epstein and his associates, and you didn't mention it, not even once. That's just a disservice to the people of the city.
Yeah. It's a dirty game.
Yeah, I got something too, because just yesterday it said Mamdani was going to not hire the 5,000 cops. He wants to now. Granted, the former budget, where this budget was from Eric Adams, which was just a way for him to try to graft, and I don't know. He thought he was going to get his next job by doing this stuff, but 5,000 cops. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. For me, because we both came from the same place, right? They have a lot of cops that are doing administrative work. One Police Plaza is loaded with them, where we could have civilians doing that job. It's every mayor says the same thing. We've got to hire more cops, when really the answer is hiring more civilians. He's not even mentioned that once. So what he's going to do is, by cutting off the cops and keeping the status quo, you're going to run into a personnel problem soon, because, as you know, Senator, police officers are not in the precincts. You know why? They've been sent to the subways. He also wants to get rid of SRG. When he get rid of all these cops and put them in the subways, why? Oh, there's a governor running her campaign, right? She wants to say, the transit crime is down because I put all these cops there. I'm the governor of law and order. That's the scheme of this. On the flip side, right, because Tish is her best friend, on the flip side, the SRG part, Steve, as you know, SRG is trained to do certain things, disorder control. They also do mass arrests. They also respond with long guns. They spent a lot of money training these officers to try to take this away now and break this up because it's some kind of campaign promise to some donor or whatever it is. That's going to cause a ripple effect because, Steve, now you got to retrain all these cops that never did this in their life. Everyone's got to get trained for disorder control now, which means cops will be out training. They're not going to be in the precincts. Oh, by the way, they're going to still be in transit because Hochul needs to get reelected. What do you say to this whole mess? Because in 1 minute, he's saying take 5,000 cops away. Then he wants to destroy SRG. What is going on with that? You need everything. Like I see simple solutions, but I don't see them doing this. I just see a lot of resistance.
So this is what happens when you lack the old timers, the experience for guidance. A lot of the guys with 30, 40 years of experience, they're exiting the police department. They're not there to guide our new mayor along the way and tell them why we need certain amount of cops and why you need certain cops in certain positions and not a civilian, or why certain positions can be taken over by a civilian. So I don't know. Do you know what the current number is in the police department?
I believe they said anyway. It's like 32 or 33,000. But I don't. You know,
I both know that a good functioning police department back in the 90s. So I think at the highest point in my career, we had 41,000 cops.
Yep.
For it to function properly, right, we really should be up to about 37, 38,000 cops, and then we'll have a fully staffed police department. They did away with all these units that were very effective, such as Organized Crime Control Bureau, such as we have less and less plainclothes cops out there. That could have put an end to this airbag theft.
Easy,
by the way, easily.
Auto larceny. That's what they were used for.
Yeah. So there's certainly a lot for this our mayor to learn. He's a young guy, so he doesn't know what it was like. Look, 30 years ago when we started cleaning up the street, how old was he? 3 years old, 4 years old? He wasn't here, right? Not to mention he wasn't here, but there was no way he could remember the hard work that it took the men and women of the NYPD, as well as the other agencies and the legislature, as well as the governor and the mayor and the city council. It really did take a village, and this place was great. I remember riding a two-wheel scooter across the walkway of the Williamsburg Bridge, 3 o'clock in the morning, because my CO told me, right, that every hour take that scooter across that bridge, right? And I did. And when there's some lone person walking across that roadway, I don't care if they're liberal, I don't care if they're progressive, I don't care if they're far right. When they saw me coming down that walkway, they had a big smile on their face, ear to ear.
You see, that's what I'm saying. I don't know, Jack, if you have any, you want to ask Steve anything, because I know he's already.
Yeah, I want to briefly touch on the proposal regarding the police officers, and then I want to touch on one more thing, budgetarily speaking, before we let the senator depart for the day. In regards to the reduction of the police force, Senator, I actually think that that's a good idea, so long as you reallocate the resources properly. You take people out of the administrative posts, as Sal was talking about, you put them on the street, it seems like you have your problem solved. A lot of people were criticizing Mamdani for proposing a $22 million reduction to the $6.4 billion budget. But at the end of the day, part of the problem is you're paying those in lieutenant and sergeant ranks $350,000 a year because of the overtime rates. I'm not trying to take away money from anyone or take away the earning potential that exists in the police department, but there needs to be a much better management of all of the resources, because the mismanagement of them is what's led us to all of the current problems.
Okay, so I know that between the time I retired and now, right, the cost of fuel alone in the police department has actually decreased, because we're using more electric vehicles, hybrids. We are using less vehicles, right? So I don't know where that extra savings went, right? I also speak to a lot of police officers around here, cops that I know. In fact, I'm going later to speak to the chief in Brooklyn South. I also know that overtime has been dramatically cut. So, we got to find out where that money went. Where did you put it? Where did you insert it in the police department? I know we had some scandals in the last couple of years with a former 4-star, right? And I don't know what happened over there, where overtime was being given out frivolously, not needed.
Using federal codes also, Steve. That's another one. They were using federal overtime. And it all came from the former chief of department. Yeah, that was the allegation.
Jeffrey Madry, yeah.
Right. So I'm always backing the blue, right? While I absolutely support the men and women in blue, they got families to raise. They have to worry about losing their homes, their jobs, their family because of the prosecutions. The anger towards police officers. I want to urge our citizens. Police officers are nice people. Look at me. I was very nice. I knew everybody in the neighborhood, and that's another thing that we have created in the last 10 years is a soulless police department. When I say I knew everybody in the 7th precinct, just like I know everybody in my district here, I knew everybody in the 7th precinct, and that's the kind of cops that we need. And to cut their budget, if they can find some place to cut it. Like I said, I just named some savings where they actually save some money. But I don't understand where the money went.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what we're getting at here is that we think that they can be equally as effective, if not more effective, with some budget cuts, as long as they kind of rearrange and reshuffle the deck properly. But before you depart for the day, because you've been very generous with your time in joining us, I wanted to ask you about how you think Mamdani is going to come out on the other side, if you will, because he's getting a lot of resistance from Albany and Governor Kathy Hochul, saying she's not going to tax the rich, because a lot of her constituents are very wealthy and they're bankrolling her politically. Let's be honest about that. But also because the taxpayer base is going to flee. Then yesterday you had City Council Speaker Julie Bannon, who's becoming increasingly powerful by the day, say that dipping into rainy day reserves and proposing significant property tax increases should not be on the table whatsoever. So, I mean, listen, Mamdani is the de facto mayor. He's the mayor in title, but he's getting a lot of resistance from all sides. And it seems like he's at some point going to have to bend a knee if he doesn't get his way.
So, I just want to cite an example. Right? When I said we spent $360 million on school food last year, right? That was not the entire budget for school food, because the USDA also subsidizes our school food with about $600 million a year. So we spend $1 billion on school food. That's about $20 a meal, right? So, and it's garbage. I see it. My daughter complains about it, right?
That's for sure.
I'll bet you we can easily save 25% on school food and get better food on the table, right? That kids love to eat. There's companies out there. We have to change some of these bidding processes. What's making these ice cold chicken fingers cost $20? It's $6 at McDonald's for a Happy Meal.
It is.
If you put a Happy Meal in front of the kids, they'll eat it.
You could go to the Chipotle in your neighborhood and get a burrito, which feels like it's a ripoff, for $12.
Right.
And eat school lunch, has chicken nuggets that bounce off of the floor onto the table for $20. Doesn't make sense.
So that's just an example of the waste that is in New York City. We can certainly streamline in a lot of places, find out where the money is going. Of course, transparency, and I spoke about it in my rebuttal to Governor Hochul's State of the State speech, which by the way, 1 million views, and I want to thank people in the state of New York. It's fantastic. I couldn't believe it. What I said is transparency is the enemy of the far left. They don't want you to know where your money went.
Nope. They're radicals, I have right here, Samantha Guccione says, Senator, I heard very good things about you from the Asian community. What you're doing with that elderly lady is what heroes do. That's what someone has to explain to the mayor. I think, Steve, if one day you want to run for maybe something a little higher than Senate, I know you didn't want to do this. I think, and I said the same to Jack, I think you have a future if you want to do something a little higher than being in the Senate.
Well, thank you very much for that, for the words of praise. But I promise the people of my district that I will not abandon them. So what if I run for it? It has to relate to, if I run for, let's say, lieutenant governor, right? That's abandoning my district. I'm not going to do that. I'm staying with my constituents. But let's say if I run for mayor or governor, right? I am not abandoning them. I will always look out for South Brooklyn.
That's the thing. I was a South Brooklyn cop. I lived there before I moved to Staten Island. I loved 6-0. I worked there. 6-2, 6-8. I grew up there. I can never forget it. It's always in my brain. Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, Gravesend. I love that area. And to see what this guy is letting them do right. And he's the mayor now. He's got a responsibility to the people, But before I let you go, I don't know if you saw, there was a herd of our youth out there just ransacking malls. Now, I believe you saw that they're stacking it. Now, here's another thing. They're sending personnel, SRG, to the malls. They went to Kings Plaza. I think they were in the Bronx Mall. Westchester's involved now. So, it looks like our youth are being poisoned. They run around doing these things, and you have to respond. And hopefully nobody gets hurt, because as police officer, look at this. This is a crazy scene of all these kids. It's like one thing after the other.
This was in the Bronx, by the way, just for context.
I saw that, and 18 kids were locked up, and they're probably back on the streets now. So this is what happened when we lost when the Senate Republicans lost the majority in the Senate in 2018. New York fell under one. A lot of people don't know this. In the last 75 years, 65 of those years, the Senate was controlled by the Republicans, and that was always New York's saving grace, because if we stopped nonsense like this, laws that protect criminals, bail reform would never have happened if the Republicans would have been in charge of the Senate. It would have stopped dead at that level right there. We really do have to take the Senate back, or at least the governor's spot. And it's social media, it's the law. There's no repercussions, there's no punishment, there's no penalty. There's nothing to stop chaos and madness.
That's what differentiates Republicans and Democrats too. Democrats like to talk the talk, whereas Republicans like to walk the walk. And this is something that sadly we saw sprout up during the most recent New York City mayoral election, when Mamdani would go around talking about being a socialist and being associated with the DSA, yet he couldn't even explain to people definitively what that even meant. And yet here we sit 2 months later, he wants to raise taxes on the working class, and he's not doing anything to fix the affordability crisis. So I'm happy that you're dispelling some of these preconceived notions about the Republican Party that people in New York City like to operate with in today's day and age.
Yeah. And one last thing before you go, Steve, I hope that, we do need a different majority. We need the Republicans to get back in the Senate majority, because those bail reform laws, all these kind of legislative, it really needs a Republican look at things. And you're not going to do it unless, the majority goes back to Republican, because that started the downfall. So Andrew Cuomo, those bail reform laws, those discovery laws, all of that changed everything. And you see what's gone on in New York City since then. So I can't blame. I know a lot of people want to just blame Eric Adams and Bill de Blasio, but Cuomo had a lot to do with that too. And because we don't have enough Republicans in the Senate, this is the mess that we have to deal with now.
Yeah. And we're there to fight it. We're holding the fort. We're holding it down.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I got to tell you, it's been an honor to have you on. I definitely going to follow up with you. I want to have your friend on the show, because I think the Attorney General spot, it is up for grabs, and hopefully Republicans can take that back and at least get some kind of common sense back into the state. But it's been an excellent hour you gave us. I got more than I thought we were going to get, and I support you. Jack supports you, and I would like to have you on in the future again. If anything, down the road, we'll keep checking up on what Mamdani's doing and what's going on in your district, because I hold it close to my heart too. I was born at the time of what's called Victory Memorial Hospital. It's now the VA.
Yes, 7th Avenue in Fort Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
7th Avenue and 92nd, right?
That's where I was born. So I'll always be a Bensonhurst kid, no matter what happens to me. Even though I live in Florida now, but I had to get away from that mess when everything happened. So, but
good seeing you guys. Yeah.
Before you leave, what's your handle on TikTok? Because you heard the mayor says, "Oh, he loves you TikTok." What is it on TikTok? And I'm
not even sure what that is, but it's on the link is on my Facebook page. It's Steve Chan, and the link is on it, and as well as on my Instagram. All the links are on my Facebook page.
Perfect. I tell you, everyone in the chat loves you. By the way, Steve,
thank you so much.
You're a big hit. I would hope someday maybe you could become the the Senate majority leader in New York State. At least, I mean, you need to have a bigger say with all these things, because no one makes sense up there. None of those guys.
Thank you.
None. But thank you for your time, Steve. God bless.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate it. And for what it's worth, just to give everyone a peek behind the curtain, your team and you especially have been incredibly professional in terms of how you've managed us. It's nice to call your office and get someone on the other line that's not an intern like all of the city council members.
Right. And I do have a lot of interns.
The interns are fine. Just, we get a lot of interns who don't respond, don't get back to us, all that stuff.
Right. So I do want to give a shout out to my team. I got a team of fantastic people, a smorgasbord of, I have a PTA president. I have a retired cop. I have, a soccer mom. It's everybody.
Not the soccer mom.
A real soccer mom. Yeah.
No one. Well, thank you once again, Steve. God bless, and have a great weekend. And we stand behind you, Steve, and hopefully we could change New York for the better.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve.
Yes, there you have it. There's Steve, Senator Steve Chan from New York, who's a great guy. As I said, great from the NYPD in his days there. There's someone who knows the issues, understands everything, and we need more people like that. I think if you had people, if there was a Steve Chan in where you lived, in your district, in your state, you'd see things be a lot better. It's very unfortunate that New York has fallen to the state it has been, but he knows all the issues. You see, these are the things that really people care about. He knows about the schools. He knows about the budget. He knows about public safety. He goes on the ground. He's in the court. He's everywhere.
Energy sources. I mean, he's literally tuned in when it comes to everything, and he epitomizes the concept of walking the walk and being an actual politician. Nowadays, too many people like going out into the community, posturing for the camera, being that guy, but not actually going through the motions and enacting the responsibilities of a politician. So he's a strong legislator. He's great in the community, and I would love to see him run for higher office at some point as well, whether it be in Congress or higher level position in New York State, governor maybe one day perhaps. I mean, he's really someone that the community needs because of his love and passion for helping other people and his real intelligence in terms of understanding what his community needs as well.
Yeah, that was great. So let me go back, and I have to run through the spiel. So if you're in South Florida and you are Italian-American, or you're Italian-American in general, please go to the iacrl.org. You could join our cause. We're going to be fighting for those Columbus statues they want to take down all over the country. We sue, we go to court. We're becoming a big organization. So join the Italian-American Civil Rights League. And there, right there on the website, like I said, you can sign up March 11th. We're having a big dinner at Casa Calabria right here in Fort Lauderdale. We're going to be honoring Roger Stone. There's going to be plenty of people there. You can meet Roger. You could come up, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be a good time. And then, of course, there it is. Me and Jack, that's IACRO. Me and Jack don't get our news from the major outlets as far as the search engine, because it's all biased. So what do? We use Free Spoke. Now, I know you're tired of searching on the web for things and not getting the results you're looking for. I have something for you. Free Spoke. Free Spoke is a search engine that is all about authenticity rather than agendas. Labels, media bias, no intrusions, or data leaking or your data being taken from you. Porn free, none of those ads, unlimited, unbiased AI, deep dive podcast searching, and you can get it by going to freespoke.app.link/Greco. Use the same link to get a 35% discount on your premium subscription. What are you waiting for, folks? This is the way of the future. Free Spoke. There you have it, folks. Greco 35, get your 35% discount on your Free Spoke subscription. And I am getting feedback already. Steve is he's a man of the people, man. They love Steve Chan. I really think that if he doesn't become, the Republicans would need like a lot of seats, but he's Senate Majority Leader written all over him or higher office.
1000%. It's weird because although the Republican Party is very small in New York State, they have some of the strongest individual politicians that I've seen in any state, whether it be Ed Ross, Senator Chan, Slater, who's with the Assembly, does a fantastic job up there in Albany too. So, I mean, they have some really, really kind of hidden gems, diamonds in the rough, if you will, who are really good at passing policies and have really good legislative prowess as well. We've learned a lot just speaking to them. I mean, these are very knowledgeable, cerebral people, and they represent the party fantastically. It's almost like they never get talked about because Republicans in New York State are viewed as a joke. Yeah. Wrongfully so, of course. Of
course, because you have people like John Catsimatidis running around funding all sides and thinks everything's a joke, and he goes on WABC radio, and then you wonder, I don't know, is that really a money-making operation over there? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe we need to look into that a little more. But now that we're talking about Republicans, we're going to run through a little bit of some news here. You found something. I saw that. Something about Donald Trump Jr., right? Another Republican. What was he saying?
Yeah, so the Trump family, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., did an interview with CNBC this past week, and they were asked about the conflicts of interest which could be taking place within the Trump organization. And this is what Don Jr. in particular had to say.
Well, you know what the critics would say. They'd say that the credibility factor is the Trump name and the Trump White House, and that everyone, is here to curry favor.
I think, again, the great irony is they didn't give us much of a choice. When you had they created this monster. When you had either one of us could have called any banker in New York over the last 20 years and gotten a loan for a building. And, we just realized we were sort of the top of the Ponzi scheme that was banking.
Well,
Yikes. Top of the Ponzi scheme? Did he just openly admit that they were running a Ponzi scheme where they could get loans from anyone they wanted without actually having to repay them? I mean, we all know that they've made $4 billion in the Trump organization over the past year or so from Trump's presidency. They've profited off of it. And understandably so, people have questions about those who have paid for access, because that's one avenue to get into the Trump world, right? You could pay for an endorsement. You can pay to be part of the organization. You can invest in a real estate property. So they're actively selling themselves and their brand to people while their dad is president. And naturally, a lot of Americans have questions about the legitimacy of all of this.
I say this. I don't know I don't know if he's trying to troll people. The thing with these guys, they think trolling. I'm trolling. Dude, stop. It's not funny anymore. This worked like, I'd say, 10 years ago in 2016 when Trump first got to office, because it was something new. Now it's old. You continue to make jackasses out of yourselves and you lose respect, which is why the approval rating is pitiful as far as the Trump presidency. That kind of rhetoric will not work. Sorry. You're trolling people. You're saying we're on top of a Ponzi scheme. You know what? There's people that actually do say you're running a Ponzi scheme. So thinking that you're going to troll people and you think it's funny, it's not. People want transparency. They're done with all the shenanigans, all the sideshowing. So, again, I don't know what he's getting at, but he's making a jackass out of himself. Like the next person we're about to discuss, which is am I getting this right, Kash Patel?
You are getting this right, sadly.
So he's the director of the FBI, and he goes on the now former deputy director FBI show, Dan Bongino, the cop that nobody knows anything that he did as a cop. So he goes on his show, and they start talking about things. Funny, they never mentioned the giant elephant in the room, which is the Epstein files that they both promised they were going to release and then said there was no there. So let's hear what these two have to say.
Everything's a level 10 decision, Cash. A level 10 meaning there's a pardon the language, but a shitty decision and a shittier one. Because if there was a good decision to be made, someone else made it. And then when those decisions, that's every day. I know you know this because I would knock on your door and you'd be like, what now? And I'd be like, here we go again. Like something else will come up. But I just want to put into perspective for folks out there, when that decision can't even be made by me, it goes to you. When it doesn't go to you, it goes like to the president's desk. He's dealing with like level 11 decisions. And that's the thing in DC is that's why the batting average isn't always going to be 1,000. There's no good call to be made or someone else would have made it. There's just really tough decisions where, there's a shit call and a shittier call. And listen, that's what we signed up for. That's how it rolls.
Look, yeah, these are difficult decisions, Dan. That's why you volunteered to jump back in. It wasn't just going to be, hey, we're going to do this job. It's going to be super easy. We're not going to have to make any hard decisions, and we're not going to have to combat a press corps that has largely been biased and full of inaccurate reporting. But we made those decisions collectively in the best interest of the nation. And if we hadn't, then none of this would be true. None of this would be real. If President Trump hadn't.
This guy for real? Is this guy for real? These two listen, these two guys are two of the single most unqualified people to ever work in the federal government. And not only the federal government, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's like me putting a janitor as the head of the FBI. He has no clue. He's never worked a case, nothing. I mean, I wouldn't be good in the FBI because I was a cop. A cop and a federal agent do two different jobs. These two guys are stroking each other, from someone said in the comments, on his little podcast there. Dan the man Bongino, who was a big tough guy in the NYPD. Nobody even knows what he did, and he was there for a cup of coffee. And these two guys, the two of the most unqualified people, are not answering the actual. What is the question everybody wants to know? You guys screamed about Jeffrey Epstein. You made a career out of it, actually. You actually profited off of this, and then you got there and had nothing to say. And then when we start seeing these things, we learn, oh, yeah, your friend Steve Bannon's all over that. This Howard Lutnick is all over that. There's other people now. Prince Andrew got arrested this morning in regards to actions taken with Jeffrey Epstein. But these guys are silent about that. And then they're acting like they're best friends and everything's chummy on air. I mean, this is just this is why people don't. That's why Trump's approval ratings going down. He surrounded himself with quite a cast of characters.
It's not just the tone-deaf nature of that conversation, not talking about Jeffrey Epstein at all. It's like them talking like they're smarter than everyone else when they were the laughingstock of the FBI for months on end because they were totally incompetent, right? Like Bongino's saying, oh, well, sometimes you have to shit can a call. Sometimes it's a good one. Sometimes it's a bad one. Kash Patel, how the hell do you have the nerve to sit in front of a camera and complain about the media when you mismanaged the Charlie Kirk investigation terribly to the point where you were on a jet waiting for a jacket to be delivered to you? You had FBI members driving around your drunk girlfriend and her friends, and you have the nerve to say the media is biased after you've been horrible at your job? I mean, what types of morality do these types of people have? It's like we're bureaucrats in the government and we can just do whatever the hell we want because we have our position and we're political elites. That's not the way this game works. You guys work for us and you have objectively been a failure no matter what metrics you look at. You have no right to do something like that. You should be absolutely embarrassed. How do you have the dignity to get in front of a camera and pontificate like that? I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Luckily, Dan Bongino left federal government. Kash Patel needs to leave too.
He ran away like a scared cat, though. It's not like he resigned under, better circumstances or anything or walked away gracefully. No, he quit. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, and he should be removed, much like someone else we're about to mention a little bit, Kash Patel. The guy's ridiculous. Going on now, he's on the show of the guy who used to work for him. I mean, so. Then there was more news about this cop, I believe that was, there was a police officer that got indicted or pled guilty to a COVID scheme, another scheme that happened. He was in a 6'6", I believe. There was an article about it in the Daily News. I don't know if you could put it up, but he got here it is. Ex-NYPD detective admits he ran COVID loan fraud scheme, faces up to 5 years. Veteran NYPD detective Wednesday admitted he ran a $1 million COVID fraud scheme that helped more than 65 people illegally apply for small business pandemic relief funds. So, this is exactly what I was trying to talk about before. It was another cop that did this, but you got the New York City sheriff that took a PPP loan. No one's saying anything about that. Detective John Bolden, 20-year NYPD veteran, retired from the force in October, pled guilty to wire fraud conspiracy. He admitted to his role in the scheme to fleece the federal Paycheck Protection Program, which was set up to offer loans to small businesses that had to close their doors because of COVID. It's from John Anise of the Daily News. He's facing 4 to 5 years based on the federal guidelines, and he'll be sentenced in Brooklyn federal court on June 3rd. He's from Valley Stream, New York. And, man, this is just another one. They were helping people out. He tried to drag other people in the NYPD in there. They got $40,000. I mean, you know, I don't know what these guys were thinking, man. It's just
Brings me back to a conversation we had with Michael Dowd months ago, where he talked about people he knew in the police force who owned a house in Montauk, had a boat here, had an apartment, a condo there, went on all types of lavish vacations. You never know how people are abusing their position of power as police officers. And sadly, during COVID, there were a lot more opportunities to do so. We saw a lot of cases with fake vaccination cards and people selling them for varying prices, depending on.
And they're still on the job, though. They're still in the NYPD.
And you're not supposed to be taking money from private businesses. Those who got an arrangement where they could work remotely in some cases were running schemes on the side too. So, you know, this is not something that you should be able to exploit so easily. And remember, Sal, we only, generally speaking, talk about the people on this show who have been caught. We're not talking about those who haven't been caught, and that list is actually a lot longer.
Which, if you did hear Steve Cham earlier when he was on the show, what did he say? It's the crimes that go unreported. Someone got assaulted, he knows, and they didn't want to say anything. Unreported, which is far worse than the ones that are reported. Which, remember, a certain former deputy mayor of public safety, who's now in my lawsuit as a defendant, remember, this person said, we only have 6 reported felonies in all of transit every single day. Reported being the main sentence there. Reported crime. We'll keep that, back of your head.
And now he's working with ICE in Long Island. Go figure.
Yeah, he's working on ICE in Long Island. Great job by Trump. Just unbelievable how they just hire the most, the greatest, most qualified people in this role. Then there was more news, Jack, that just came down. Believe Tom Donlan's lawsuit, who, John Scola we've had on the show. John Scola represents, his case was dismissed. And so they got they challenge in that one, but put that on the screen because there was a whole thing Eric Sanders wrote, because if you don't know, there was a whole thing in there written about Quatisha Epps, so who he represents. I don't know why she was even in there, but Eric wrote a whole thing about retaliation is the RICO and how Donlan's complaint misused federal procedure to smear a whistleblower. And he explains how, the judge ruled. And one of those things in that complaint was mentioning Epps. I don't know why she was even in there, because it has nothing to do with Tom Donlan. But it was in there, and now it was dismissed. So they're going to John told me, I spoke to John Scola yesterday, told me he had to he's challenging this, I think, in federal court. And I think it got knocked down in state if he's going to bring it forward. So says, Mr. Donlan's claims are detailed, evidence-based, and consistent with facts that have continued to emerge from ongoing federal investigations, Scola said in a statement. He added that he believes an appeals court will overturn Coates' decision. Yeah, so that one came down too. I don't know what happened there, but I remember that we had him on, and I was one. I don't know why she was in there, but the actual complaint itself, there's a lot of things in there that made a lot of sense that you look back and go, man, Donlan knew a lot, and somehow it all got dismissed. So I don't know.
And it got dismissed on the basis that Adams wasn't intentionally running the NYPD like a criminal organization. So in other words, the judge said, we know he was running the NYPD like a criminal organization, but because he wasn't doing it intentionally and explicitly, we're not able to charge him with that, which is hard to understand, because if there's so much evidence in Donlan's favor about him getting followed around with drones by his cronies and overtime being handed out to only favorable employees and promotional lists getting erased only so Jeffrey Maddrey and Edward Caban could put all of their people on those lists. Like, there's a lot of evidence that there was extreme levels of cronyism, yet because it wasn't intentionally run like the mafia, the case gets thrown in the garbage can. That's where you would ask John Scola, would you have worded things differently if you had a chance to file that lawsuit over? Because maybe if he had talked about it being a criminal enterprise instead of it intentionally being one, he would have had a better outcome. I don't know. It's very weird. I'm very surprised by this judgment and decision.
Yeah. So, I guess he's going to try to fight that, and we'll see where that one goes. We'll keep you updated with that. Obviously, John also comes on the show. He's a friend of the shows. So if he has to come back on and report back what's going on with that, because I thought that suit was like that was groundbreaking to see a former police commissioner go and sue the mayor. But I guess the judge thought differently. So who knows what's going to happen with that one now. We got to Anthony Miranda as well, because I asked Steve, Senator Steve Chan about this, but with Anthony Miranda, I put this video up because, like I said, Anthony Miranda, we found out about his little PPP loan that nobody was talking about. So let's play this.
What's really concerning right now is for Mayor Mamdani, who somehow is continuing to keep Eric Adams' lackeys employed in certain positions in the New York City government ecosystem. One person that comes to mind is the New York City Sheriff, Anthony Miranda. It has come to the Sal Greco Show's attention that Mr. Miranda had applied for a PPP loan, yet at the time, the company, Anthony Miranda and Associates, had about 5 employees, but immediately dissolved the company when he received the money. Now, there's $26,000 in a PPP loan, yet why was Mr. Miranda not investigated and then prosecuted for such things? Whereas right now, there are New York City Police Department officers being investigated for PPP loan fraud. What's going on there? Why is this guy still the New York City Sheriff, Mayor Mamdani?
Jack, that's a fair question. That one right there, we just showed you how this cop pled guilty to a whole, he tried into fraud at 40. What's the difference between 28,000 and 40,000, Jack? Is it $12,000? Yet this guy's the sheriff. And by the way, Sylvia Miranda, his wife, she was big against these menthol cigarettes. It's a big conflict of interest. She wrote this big letter from the NOLA, which is the organization Miranda founded, which is kind of like 100 blacks in law enforcement, Eric Adams. And it's a direct conflict, because guess who can confiscate people with menthol cigarettes in their stores? Her husband as the sheriff. So it's like this guy is highly conflicted. He's got a car in front of his house with NYPD. He's bringing up provisional lieutenants. Instead of going off a list, he's going off of who he wants to promote his exams people take. That list is on hold. None of this makes sense under this guy. Why is he still the sheriff, Jack?
Well, the one thing about this fraud that nobody's mentioning is it's an extreme conflict of interest, not just because he works for the city, but also because the sheriff's office in New York is affiliated with the Department of Finance. So he's taking out loans when he's supposed to be overseeing kind of financial improprieties with the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office in New York City handles a lot different matters than sheriff's offices in other states. And this is someone who came up through the system through the NYPD, who has been accused of corruption at each step of the way. Yet somehow he's like a running back who gets tackled 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, yet somehow lunges forward for the first down, right? He's always been promoted forward somehow, some way. He's in Somos brushing shoulders with Mamdani too. So he's in it with the new administration. He's not just an Eric Adams crony. He's an institutional bureaucrat. But he's someone who you can't keep in office that much longer. You have to remove him, and you have to fully investigate his crimes so that other people can take you seriously. Because if you have one set of rules for one set of people and then another set of rules for the social elites within your administration, your credibility level is going to start to decrease. And a lot more people are becoming aware of Anthony Miranda's improprieties.
Listen, I think there should be some kind of investigation, because if everyone else is getting investigated and indicted, why is Anthony Miranda not being questioned over that loan? 5 employees. I mean, that's ridiculous. His wife running around trying to, I'm advocating against menthol cigarettes. That's funny, because your husband can confiscate people who have them, in civil enforcement. So This is wild. It's just Miranda's still there. I don't get it. And he's got a car in front of his home. And he's
making about $240,000 a year.
And he's making he's bringing up provisional lieutenants and not the ones he's just bringing up who he wants instead of those who should have been. They're on a list. I don't get it. I mean, this is wild. I didn't want to say this before. Shout out to you, Frankie Palaguacci, another $9.99 in Sal Greco Show. It's a lot of cafecito, by the way. Support the show, and God bless everyone. Oh, God bless you too, Frank, because remember, Frank is still going through it. It's going to be the long haul for him. Then I have another one, and we're just going to run through this. Another video I had about Howard Lutnick. If you don't know, Howard Lutnick is the Commerce Secretary for the United States, and lately we found out he's another Epstein associate. So let's play this. Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce for the United States, has a issue. That issue is that Howard, as a businessman, had claimed that he had known Jeffrey Epstein, but yet hadn't spoken to him since 2005. And then, boom, here come the Epstein files with all sorts of stuff. And apparently he was still in communication with Jeffrey Epstein. He even had a fundraiser with him. And remember that Howard Lutnick, he is the one pushing the tariffs on the president. But then just the other day at a press conference, a reporter asked President Trump about the Jeffrey Epstein association with Howard Lutnick. And let's see what not only the president's response was, but Howard Lutnick himself.
Some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation.
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it.
So not only did you get a non-answer from the president, but it seems that Howard Lutnick himself had a smug look on his face, and he thinks everything is funny. You know what's not funny? Being transparent with the American people. And when you work for them, which is what you are doing, Mr. Lutnick, while you are the Commerce Secretary, you need to be transparent. And if you're not, then maybe the president should remove you from his cabinet. This right here, Joel Ramirez putting in the chat. Shout out to Joel. Let's not forget this guy brought his kids to the island like it was Disney World. Okay, so this guy has been running around lying to the American public and to Congress. I only knew this. I only knew him in 2005. You're seeing all the files. He's all over it, Lutnick, having a fundraiser. And now when he's asked from the press, he's laughing like he's laughing at you, all of you. That's not being transparent. I don't know what kind of people Trump put in his administration, but he's got some real winners with Patel, now Bongino, who's gone. You got Pam Bondi. You got Kristi Noem. Now you got this one, Howard Lutnick, who, by the way, was not a real Republican. That's another thing I don't know if people know. He was a big Harris guy, and then he just switched out of nowhere. So,
yeah, I think we can define him as a uniparty elite. That would be a more proper term. But with Lutnick, a lot of people also forget that he lived right next door to Jeffrey Epstein and bought a property from Epstein for $10 on the Upper East Side. I mean, for $10 on the Upper East Side, I don't think you could even get a bagel with cream cheese and a coffee. And he got a huge mansion. I mean, this is where they were living. They were right next. This is where they were on the East Side, right next door to each other. This is Lutnick's house. This is where Epstein lived. They were literally like friends hanging out. They could go over to each other's houses. I'm pretty sure there was a secret tunnel underneath the houses that would connect the two. So yeah, these are two people who are very intimately involved, and yet he wants to kind of dive away from all of the blame. It's funny because when Jeffrey Epstein was in the prime of his career, hiding money for all these billionaires, running around like a social elite, everyone wanted to be around him. Everyone wanted to affiliate him at every single opportunity they got. Now that they're in hot water because of their association with him, they barely knew him. Does anyone really believe that? Because I know that I don't. The only thing that's been proven is that social elites are given a free pass when they get caught putting their hand in the cookie jar, whereas everyone else is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah, this guy seems to be a slime ball, and Mr. President, I think a removal of this guy from the cabinet is in order here. This guy is a slime ball.
And the one more thing about Lutnick, real quick, Sal. in some of the allegations against Lutnick, it was noted that he was a member of Cantor Fitzgerald, which was a firm that did a lot of business extensively with Jeffrey Epstein too. So he was part of a lot of the money laundering.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. This guy, he's there, and he's not even a real Republican. He just magically showed up. And, oh, here I am. Oh, Secretary of Commerce for this guy. Wow. And then one last guy that we keep going back to. I don't know if you have the Steve Bannon, who's he's all over the place with his little brigade, his little posse around him, trying to throw shade on things. I found another text message. I mean, there's so many, but there's another message that he had said that between him and Epstein. I mean, it's every day with this guy too. So I'm looking for this right now, what he had said to him. Let me see right here. So he says, this is Jeffrey Epstein telling Steve Bannon, if you Google the word idiot, a picture of Donald Trump comes up. And you know what Steve Bannon says? Pop-up picture, signed. Okay, that's what it said with this guy who wanted the 25th Amendment. He was behind the scenes wanting Trump out during that first administration. By the way, he worked in that administration briefly. This guy is scum. And he is the closest guy to Jeffrey Epstein. There it is. See, if you Google the word idiot, a picture of Donald Trump comes up. That's Jeffrey Epstein. Steve Bannon's response, pop-up picture signed. And guess what? He worked in Trump's administration at this time. And he wanted the 25th Amendment. He was all in on it. But now his little posse around him, Grace Chong and all these other people, are throwing defense for Steve Bannon. Is he really a MAGA guy? I think this guy's another slime ball. How's that vat of acid doing in the pulleys or whatever tub he had in his home that he sold? I mean,
there was said to be a fallout between Trump and Epstein over a house on Palm Beach that cost, I think, $35 million that Epstein wanted to buy and Trump wanted to buy, and they were in a bidding war over it. And apparently they didn't talk after the house was ultimately sold. I think that's a bunch of BS, honestly, after everything we've learned about the Epstein files. I think there was another conflict that was brewing beneath the surface that they don't want the public to know about, and they're not talking about it. And that was the real conflict that caused the fallout between those two parties. In regards to Bannon, though, hopefully the president realizes that he has a snake in his inner circle who's been trying to bite him at each twist and turn. And if he's willing to go to someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who, by the way, at the time of this text message, Epstein had already been charged with sexually assaulting minors once back in 2005. So this is actually from the second episode, the second set of charges. So this is, yeah, he had already been convicted once. So Bannon knew who Epstein was. He knew what he did, and he continued to associate with him. And it seems like the president had no idea that this was going on. So, I mean, if nothing else, hopefully this raises awareness about the level of backstabbing that was going on within this current administration. I know they like to talk about being in cahoots with one another, but really there's snakes swirling around the grass all over the place.
Yeah, and I like Matt O'Brien's comment. He says, Bannon is a creep. I'd say that too. He's more than that. I mean, this guy's...
I would agree with that.
Total. This guy needs they got to drag him into Congress. What does he know? So I wanted to end the show on a high note. So this New York Post article here by Zoe Hussein says, New York City's iconic accent, think Goodfellas and the Bronx Tale, is slowly disappearing from daily lingo, study says. Forget about it. The famous New York accent is slowly disappearing from everyday use, a recent study found. Nationwide survey of 3,042 adults across the U.S. this month revealed that the Big Apple's notable pronunciations ranked 12th in regional dialects that residents feel are dying off. So that means that infamous accent, even I have a little bit, you have a little, it's slowly dissipating, much like the rest of New York City.
Is it like dinosaurs? Is the accent going extinct entirely? I have to say, out of all of the accents in the world, I do believe the New York City one is probably the most identifiable. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be in Hong Kong, Beijing, Europe. If you meet someone who recognizes a New York City accent, they will be able to not only diagnose that you're from New York City, but they will be able to tell you which specific borough you're from. People ask if I'm from South Brooklyn all the time. Actually, I'm from North Brooklyn, but you're close enough and in the ballpark to the point where I'm impressed with your ability to identify it. I also like the Midwestern accents and the Rhode Island accents, the New England ones more specifically. I'm going to go Park Mackay, that one. That's how people, I root for the Red Sox, the people from Boston talk like that. So yeah, I mean, it's a really cool stereotype that I think a lot of people have fun with, but sadly, because most people from New York City nowadays are not actually, or the people who are living there are not actually from there, I do believe that the accent could genetically die off.
See, Silver Belfiu says, not mine. And I was on a show she hosted on Monday night. She's a good, a loyal supporter of the show. I think she's been here since the very beginning, and she definitely lives in New York City. She's a Brooklynite, but I don't know for how long. Hopefully, she stands and fights for what's right there in Brooklyn. When you have a state senator like Steve Chang. I also know, you're going to be going to spring training this weekend. That'll be your activity, right? You're going to see the Mets and the Marlins up in Port St. Lucie.
Mets and Marlins spring training opener up in Port St. Lucie this upcoming Saturday at 1:05. Brandon Waddell pitching for the Mets. I think I'm probably going to be seeing the C team, not even the B team, because for the first week of spring training, they try and play all the reserves and the minor league guys who are maybe fighting for a roster spot. But it's going to be good just to get back around the baseball diamond, hearing the ball hitting the mitt, the crack of the bat. I mean, it's more about satisfying and scratching the itch. And then later on, we'll get what we really want with opening day. It's no different than preseason football. Preseason football is good for about the first game, and then the second two games are kind of boring because you got what you wanted and it satisfied the craving. It's like going to a pizza restaurant in Florida, right? You're craving pizza. You're not going to get authentic New York style pizza, but you know what? You go to a pizza place just to get it anyway, and you leave happy.
Stephen S. Tiger, he's funny. He says, accent, you're lucky to find someone who speaks English at all on the subway or the bus. If you're not getting assaulted, you never hear but that. Well, that's people. I don't know if you know. I hope everyone has a good weekend. This weekend, though, is a special weekend because my birthday falls on this weekend. I'll be turning 44 on Saturday. So for everyone, if you want to give me any birthday wishes. Also, listen, as you know, I am fighting the city, not once, but twice. I'm fighting NYPD, and we're also trying to expand this show. As you saw, we had a great guest today. I like more, I like to do a lot more on the show, but I can't do that because, I also am suing for the fact that I don't have a post certificate, which means I can't get work the way the common guy could get it. So if you can, salgreco.com/support. Whatever you could try to contribute goes a long way. I'm also trying to fix that website. That costs money as well. So salgreco.com/support if you feel inclined to help the show. Also, IACRL.org to join the Italian American Civil Rights League. But there it is. You hit the support button. You help out the show. You help me and Jack out. You help it. I mean, I'm spending all this money fighting the monsters. One that was apparently in Florida yesterday with his little. He showed his little, I guess he was having a drink, which we all know he likes to do that, but he got served yesterday.
Wow.
So just so you know.
He's like Lord Voldemort. We don't say his name.
We don't say his name, but, a former disgraced employee that made it to the highest uniform rank in the police department.
It was funny because you texted me. He's probably looking for houses by you. You might see him soon. And I texted you back. Well, I don't think that he has much mobile ability nowadays to walk around. And it seems like he sits inside and drinks for about 8 to 12 hours a day. So I probably actually won't be seeing him too much.
It's just a disgrace to the job, that guy. But, so that's what we're going to be doing this weekend. I'd like to once again thank Senator Steve Chan from New York for taking his time to come on the show. It's a big deal to have a sitting state senator who's actually trying to hold the mayor's feet to the fire. He's doing the best he can, and we that's all you could ask from your politician. So shout out to Steve and his whole team. We'll be back on Monday, 11:05 a.m. There'll be plenty to go on during the weekend. So stay tuned to the Sal Greco Show on YouTube, on Rumble, on TikTok, on Instagram. On a new app called Clapper as well. So you'll see any new updates we're going to be putting up there. And also don't forget to follow us on X at the Sal Greco and at J_Stern97. Before we go, I see this right here. Shout out to Stephen S. Tiger, $20 to the Sal Greco Show. Happy birthday, espresso and cannolis. I will take you up on that offer, Steve. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless everybody in the chat. And his baby Lou says, excellent show, Sal. Thank you too. So I will see you all on Monday. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Obviously, I have my birthday, and of course, it's opening day for spring training. Baseball's now around the corner. Don't forget Highlight tomorrow on Friday. It's going to be on Highlight League, World Highlight League. Check that out. They'll have another game at 7 p.m. at the Jam Arena. We'll see how that goes. So we'll see you Monday. Until then, me and Jack are signing off from sunny South Florida right now. It's a little warm because, as you all know, Florida is a sunny place for shady people.
What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
Listen, there was a book that came out that Jasmine Ray wrote, and in the Daily News today, it stated that there was a sexual action that happened in Borough Hall. She reported in that book. And it wasn't. You're a dark, sick person, man. You know that? You're a dark, sick person. Your name was on the byline. And there's some of you that have been covering me. You guys could part. Let me do this. Y'all could depart. Some of you have been recovering me for 3.5 years. Some of you are so sick and dark, and you're the leader of that. You're one of the most dark writers that I've ever seen in this city. And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a black man, that in the book is stated that there was a sexual action in Borough Hall. That was never in the book. But that's typical of the sickness and the darkness of your sick mind. You're one of the sickest reporters I know. Go to the next question. You're a sick person.